Hello and welcome to Focus on Liberia, a special edition of the Hour of Politics. I'm Ansony Sieh, always your host. Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. George Preston Lobbo, he always referred to me as senior brother, and I always say junior brother. We respect each other dearly. We don't agree on everything, but we try to be substantive and focus on the issues that matter for the forward march of our country. Today's topic might not be new to you, but the twist will give you a much broader understanding. It is about the CPP. Our topic is this big question: where is the CPP framework document? Others are saying Cummings has it. In fact, the court is asking Mr. Cummings. Mr. Cummings is saying, I don't have it. So we want to understand, where is the CPP framework document? Mr. George Lobbo is here to help us discuss the topic, analyze it, understand it, dive deeper, for you to know if the framework document is lying somewhere that we know or we don't know. Mr. Lobbo, it's good to have you here, always on the Hour of Politics. Welcome. How you doing?
Thank you very much, Mr. Sieh. It's a pleasure to join you guys this afternoon. I want to say thank you for the opportunity once again. I look forward to a fruitful conversation. This is one of those places that I'm always open to coming to, and I hope we can be able to bring some sense to the conversation and provide some analysis around national issues. But I'm glad to be with you here today.
Thank you, George. I think most of you who follow Focus on Liberia know that Mr. Lobbo is an executive of Unity Party, USA and Canada, and he is an ardent and unapologetic supporter former Vice President Joseph Yuma Boakai. So you see right there, Team JMB. Mr. Lobbo, before we get started with the discussion, how is JMB? I refer to him as the father of the nation. How is he doing, by the way?
The last time I checked, the former vice president, my political leader, Liberia next president, he's doing very, very well. He's in good health, sound spirit. He is committed and working towards programs. Overall, Mr. Sieh, the former vice president is heavily engaged on the activities of being president from day one. But in the Liberian term, when we ask how is JMB, I would say to you that JMB is doing very, very well. And I'm telling you, he's excited. He's looking forward to the opportunity to be able to create those opportunities that are yet to be created for our people. So he's focused on those things and he's doing very well.
All right. Thank you. Our many listeners, if you have not shared the show yet, please, as Joe will always say, hit that share button. I borrow it from him. Let's get the broadcast to as many Liberians as possible, because the discussion will be very informative. I mean, if you see the drive and Focus on Liberia coming together, these are the two most informative platforms you can ever find on the planet. I'm talking about the Liberian planet. So, Josh, like I started here quickly, let me get your introduction, on our topic. Where is the CPP original framework document?
Mr. Sieh, is one of those sad moments for the country and for many other Liberians and supporters of the CPP. This was something we gave birth to with the expectation that the four political parties coming together was with good intentions so that we can be able to unseat current President George Weah. Sadly for us, there was an agreement which was signed on May 19 by the four political leaders. That is the original CPP framework document. I think it's good when we do that so that people understand, because There are so many different versions of the document. You know you've had them. But I think when we speak in terms of the original CPP framework document, we'll be referring to the May 19 document that was signed by the 4 political leaders. However, the signing took place under the leadership of now current criminal defendant, the political leader of ANC, Mr. Alexander B. Cummings. As you will know, Mr. Sieh, that document, Mr. Cummings have decided that if they ever see the daylight, then it will be the next day that Titanic saw daylight, to the point that his colleagues will have to take him to court. And the court itself will get involved in asking Mr. Cummings so that the document will see daylight. So Mr. Cummings holds all the answers to this question. So as far as we are concerned, former CPP chairman, now criminal defendant, political leader of the ANC, Mr. Clean Hands Alexander B. Cummings does have the document. And that is what we see on that.
Thank you, George. And I'm thankful that you made it clear to our listeners that the CPP framework document has been going through a lot of processes. And so there are many copies or few copies. And the one we are referring to as the original is the one that was signed on May 19. So let's talk about that. The signing ceremony, as you are aware, George, on May 19 was done through a Zoom meeting. The 4 political leaders in the CPP were in their respective homes. But virtually, the document was signed. So talk to me. The signing process, is said that each had a copy, or was it one copy? Talk to me. How was the signing done? Because we saw them signing live on Facebook.
So what happened was that ceremony that we witnessed, Mr. Sieh, was that each political party signed those copies. The copies were 5 copies.
5, okay.
5 copies. What it meant was that each political institution will get one of the original copy, which means the one you have fixed your signature to. And then the other one would have been notarized. So the first thing, they were going to notarize all 5 of them, rather. And then one will go to NEC, and each party will get one as their copy. Now, that is the document we are speaking about. Since the signing ceremony, Mr. Sieh, all other political parties are yet to receive their copies.
So hold on, George. They each sign a copy.
Yeah.
And the copy they signed during the Zoom meeting, each of them had that copy that they signed. My question is, you said 5 copies, and I agree that is the truth. Were all the copies collected from them because you said they needed to be notarized?
Yes.
So were all the 5 copies given to somebody?
Yes. And in the
case,
collection process, Mr. Sieh, hold on. In the collection process, in each of these documents, don't forget now, every political party must sign in each of those copies.
Right.
Okay, for it to be legit. So in the process of doing that, so it had to go around for all of them to sign.
To sign
so
each of the 5 copies.
Each of the 5 copies. That was done. Now it was placed in the hands of the chairman, who was charged with the responsibility of ensuring that it will be notarized, and then one of the copies will be given to NEC, and the other political party will receive their copies.
So after Cummings took possession of the 5 copies, that is why you are saying, right?
Yeah.
To notarize them. And since that time, you are saying he did not give a copy each to the rest of the political leaders. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Mr. Sieh, we don't even have to be using my words. Let's use the CPP own words, for example. Let's look at the communication that was sent to Mr. Cummings by the political leader of the LP, former chairman of the CPP, Lawrence, the chairperson who succeeded Cummings. We saw the communication from Senator Lawrence requesting those copies, right? What is the major issue of contention today in the court? From Mr. Ure, who was former chairman as well. So I don't even want to bring it to George Lobbo because you will reduce the standard of the argument. Because let's use their own political leaders. The political leaders themselves have made it very clear that they didn't receive their copies. So let's just use that. We've seen a communication now that they are in a court, and that is one of the contentious arguments in the court. That up to now they are yet to receive their own copies.
So, Cummings notarized them. You are quoting the political leaders, and the document then became legal.
Yes.
All right. All of the 5 copies became legal. And it was at that point they are arguing that Cummings did not serve them each a copy of the notarized version of the CPP document. So when that get to them that they needed to have copy.
You see, Mr. Sieh, this is why I have been very, very clear when it comes to leadership.
I don't want to interrupt you. The reason I'm asking the question, let me give the context so that you can have the opportunity to respond. Because there was no noise, there was no request about this. The document from what you and I said no was filed by Mr. Cummings and Ned. That document officially registered the CPP as a political entity, and they went to election. And it was later when there was this disagreement as to who becomes the candidate when this noise started coming about, and that's why I asked the question. So that might be, go ahead.
So Mr. Sieh, it's good that you brought the question on that way, but just the way you wish you lay it, it makes the argument a lot stronger for Mr. Ure and the other leaders. And here's why. Had Mr. Cummings. So what needs to happen? Let's do it this way. Okay, we signed 5 copies, right? If the document that was submitted to NEC is exactly what the political leaders signed, then Mr. Cummings got no reason being in the court. Right? The major point of contention is that what we also signed is not what you gave to NEC. So again, how can other political leaders now know exactly what was given to NEC? They need their original copy. Yeah, it is true you are arguing. You make a brilliant point. But Mr. Sieh, again, that does not suffice in the code of law. Because here's the thing about it. He was charged with the responsibility of leading the organization. It was his responsibility to ensure that that document will be notarized, that copies will be made out to his colleagues. And again, I want to say to you, this is a man who's asking to be president. And if he can run the affairs of 4 political parties, if we will dedicate such responsibility to him, and today we'll be questioning his judgment, then what does that say? You should get his money.
George, we will get to the politics. You understand? Let us get some deeper understanding. You know, like
so that is what happened. So
I know.
So your question here is why all this time the document you guys were not requesting? Now we must also be honest here with our audience, Mr. Sieh. We know that in the process of the document going to NEC, we know that at some point in time, the 4 political leaders, based on Mr. Cummings' request, that there needed to be some legal ratification, that they also agree that Mr. Cummings should give the documents to the lawyers for their input, for their perusal, for their recommendations. That none of them have denied. So that was also part of the process. Now, here is a major issue of contention. So part of the reason why I think the other political leaders did not see it feasible to demand that Mr. Cummings bring the copies, they felt 1, he will be responsible. 2, they trusted him to be this great guy. 3, they knew he was this clean hands man, that he would do nothing nefarious, that he's someone who his word will be his word. So they were relaxed. So their expectation was that after the lawyers, Mr. Cummings would have done the right thing. And sadly for them, he did the wrong thing.
Just let's do justice to our audience. We will get to the politics. You know, I love politics, right? So the document, when it was signed, there was this public outrage, condemnation of the document. So the decision of the leaders in the CPP was that, look, let's give it to the lawyers, you understand, to fine-tune the document. The lawyers did their work. The lawyers went and reported what they did to them. That's where the accusation now is coming about. That after the lawyers have done their work, the document was given to Cummings. The accusation now is that Cummings then made changes as alleged by Benin and Ure. And those changes that were made were not brought to the full knowledge of the other political parties. Is that right? According to the allegation, that's the details.
So, Mr. Sieh, I think here's what we need to understand. I think some of your audience are losing it. In every single document, I will just show an example because I think it's important that we provide, when we have these conversations, let's provide the education for some of our colleagues. And it is important. It's very, very important. If you look in all the CPP, in the investigation report, you will see all the political leaders' signature. This is the report that was concluded upon it. So when someone asks, say, how you sign 5 copies, that means you don't understand. If I'm going to give a document to you, that means this document is legit. So you sign it and you have a copy. But in the original stage, it was 5 documents. They had to be signed by all of them. Because what will go to NEG had to be signed by all of them. Now, here's the point of contention, Mr. Sieh. One thing we need to understand is this. Because you give legal document to lawyers for their perusal, for their approval, or for their review, that does not mean that when a lawyer makes changes to a document, that it is final. No. The lawyer works for you. Where if, for example, Mr. Sieh, because I want...
George, that's the point I was making. I don't know whether you are not understanding me. I was trying to bring to your attention that the lawyers did their work and reported.
Yes.
When the lawyers reported, the allegation here is that after the lawyers have done their work, then the Nigeria have been arguing, even going back and forth on that to say that the document was changed or additional changes were made that were not either recommended by the lawyers or were not done by the lawyers. And that document that was changed was filed with NEC without their knowledge. That's the point I was making. That is his accusation.
And so Mr. Sieh, again, my party, the Unity Party, which is part of this whole process, does have a team representing us there. But we'll speak to this issue based on the facts that have been provided to the public and what is in the public domain and what we've read. You and I have had a talk on this document. So here is, we must not reduce Ure's case to only just that. What Ure is alleging, which I think that's how I will summarize this whole thing. Ure is saying, I signed a document on May 19th. What was submitted to NEC with my signature is not what I signed on May 19th. That is it. Now, whether the lawyers made changes to it, the fact that the lawyer made changes to a document, stay does not authorize that document until the parties involved can sign and acknowledge that they've agreed with the lawyers. And that is why, Mr. Sieh, when you read the lawyer's recommendation, like when you go to the CPP or investigative report, you will see that there are wordings. They say the lawyers recommend, the lawyers suggest, the lawyers recommend. That a recommendation does not mean it has to be taken. Article 51 of the Liberian Constitution said the vice president must advise the president. It does not say that the president must take
this
the
was
advice
not
of the
captured
president.
in the lawyer's note.
You say
Somewhere
what?
also in the report said this was not captured in the lawyer's note.
Absolutely. Right? Okay. It is in the report. So my point is, I'm just using the report. I don't want to discuss in they say, he said, I want us to use what you and I have read, the document that is available. And I think if we do this and analyze these things using the facts, I think our people will understand a lot better. Instead of people sitting there lying and saying, who's do this? Who does this? Take the report, take the documents. If you believe that no documents were altered, what I would challenge every other platform, every other intellectual to do moving forward is to take the CPP framework document, read it to their audience, and argue that nothing was altered. But instead of sitting down with these conspiracy, fake theories, false narratives, when we have the dossiers, Mr. Sieh, I want to ask you before I go, I'll leave it with you. Can you say definitively, based on what you've read in the CPP framework document, do you believe that the documents are the same or are not the same?
It is clear there were changes made to the document.
Okay.
After the lawyers reported to the CPP upon the CPP request, right? And the ANC folks have even acknowledged that there were cosmetic changes, harmless changes, that the changes that were made did not put anybody, at an advantageous position, or did not favor Mr. Cummings. So they themselves had acknowledged that there were some changes made. Now, some of them argue in some quarters, look, every document goes through editing processes. You have to dot the T and cross the I. But to say that something nefarious, as alleged by Mr. Ure, was done to benefit, to change the language of the document, they are saying that is not the case. So in their opinion, they argue, what you people are called authoring, is not actually authoring in their understanding. I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to make one point very clear. And this is why, Mr. Sieh, I think we will let the courts play its part now. Because we cannot build a society, a vibrant society, based on deception and lies. I know there are people who are hell-bent on misinforming the public for whatever interest they might have. That's fine. For me, I do not dwell in fake narratives, and you know that. This is why, before I speak on national issues, I will take the time to read. And as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Sieh, I strongly believe that Mr. Benedict Wilfred Ure does have a strong case. His argument is legit. Ansony Sieh, when you submit a legal document with someone's signature on a document that they did not sign, that is fraudulent. Fraudulent is a criminal offense. It is a crime. And on the basis of this, today the political leader of the ANC is now a criminal defendant in a fraudulent trial. So
and
what
finally,
I would say, I want the courts to really take a step. And the courts
before we get to the court aspect, and then we'll pivot to the politics. What I'm about to read to you came from now former chief of office staff to Mr. Cummings.
Okay, go for it.
All right. And he posted this on Facebook as ANC trying to provide explanation as to what happened. He wrote, June 19, 2020, legal advisor submitted revised FA and issued a rising for review to the ANC. June 22, 2020, ANC submitted revised FA and issued a rising for review to the legal committee of the what? The NEC. That's the NAC. That's the National Advisory Council via WhatsApp, and call for the National Advisory Council meeting to review revised FA from the legal advisors. So what it's saying is, after the document was submitted to Mr. Cummings by the legal team that was asked by the CPP, Cummings then submitted A to the National Advisory Council of the CPP through a WhatsApp message. So he continued to write and said that on June 23rd, 2020, CPP and legal advisor review, and all parties approve the revision as submitted by the legal advisors.
Mr. Sieh,
let me read the final one.
Mr. Sieh, spare your people the time.
All parties submitted, signed a resolution during the week of July 6, 2021. So if you look at his post, and this is coming from ANC, and I want to make that clarity, and I'm breaking that up so that you can have the opportunity to see whether they're telling the truth or not.
Let me say this to you. Yes.
So they are saying all the processes were followed, and they
Mr. Sieh,
Mr.
Sieh,
yes.
Don't quote me. Let's quote the former chairman of the CPP, Senator Nyomli Kanga Lawrence. You listened to a press conference. What did she say? That the processes and procedure outlined for the revision and submission of documents by the CPP were not followed. Am I correct?
She said that.
So if she said that, what then that mean the chief of staff? What I mean, those are the type of people Cummings guy as his official. I don't have time for that. So again, the CPP investigation, which I have read, also established that indeed the procedure and the processes outlined by the CPP for the revision and submission of documents were not followed. So having said that, Mr. C, again, like I said, I will not discuss this issue with no opinion. I will stick to the facts. I will stick to the documents we have. Now, here's what I will say to you, Mr. C. If Mr. Cummings truly believes that he followed the right procedure, that he followed the processes outlined by the CPP, Mr. Ure case is very simple. Ure is saying the document I signed on May 19 is not what you gave NEC, but it carries my signature of May 19. So again, that itself is fraudulent. If it is proven, that is fraudulent. So yes, what I was saying to Mr. Cummings, before I move, yes, my point to respond to that. Let me finish the thought quick. Here's what I would say to Mr. Cummings. It's simple. If you believe that the processes were followed, they approved everything, Mr. Cummings, you are now in court. You are currently a criminal defendant. I think it is important that you clear your name. If I was in his position, I don't have to be taking appeals. I would just submit the original framework document and show to the Liberian people how transparent and honest I am and put this thing behind me. So again, Mr. C, like I said, we can get to the courts, but I'm not going to respond to any Cummings chief of staff because Mariah Yakula.
So finally on the process,
let me say this to Mariah. Mariah on Spoon said, you recall, that no changes were made. And I recall Teller Ure called that day. And Teller Ure said, when the investigation is concluded, the Liberian people will know if changes were made. The investigation was concluded. It has been established that changes were made. Mr. Cummings himself, his Secretary General Elisha Stowe, in a statement admitted to changes. We've heard him say there were cosmetic changes. There were harmless changes. There were changes not intended to hurt anybody, but they agreed changes were made. So I'm not going to listen to anything from anyone from the ANC. This is why we'll follow the facts. We'll let the Lord take his course. And I'm glad that Mr. Ure will test the system. That's all I would say to that.
And George, one thing you said that I want to highlight is the idea that the ANC, from the get-go of this allegation that there were changes made, they said zero. They were emphatic. You cited or quoted Mariah on Spoontalk, right?
Yeah.
They have their writings on social media. Some of us follow them carefully and take little notes. I even have in my possession a script written by ANC. In that script, they say zero. They put it in simple Liberian English.
Okay.
I have it right here on my phone. I'm looking at it. They say zero, nada.
No changes were made. So why would ANC people?
And later on, they say cosmetic, harmless. So there are two different statements you're making.
So then why should we waste our time with the people who are not honest?
Hold your peace. Hold your peace. Hold your peace. So now, one more thing I want to bring to your attention, then we'll get to the legal aspect and then we'll get to the politics. I think we'll mix the politics and the legal aspects together.
You are the moderator.
And here is it, George. Now, the other leaders or the other parties, the ANC, not the ANC, the Unity Party, LP, and Liberty Party, saying they don't have copies. According to the ANC, they said on July 14, ANC Secretary General asked all parties to pick out their final copy of the 5FA from the ANC headquarters. Only Unity Party Secretary General Mo Ali picked up Unity Party's copy. I hope you know what I'm going with that, right?
Go for it.
Because the question here is that will bring us to the legal aspect. The question here is that where is the original document? Cummings said, I don't have it. And for us here, Josh, you know us, we follow the facts.
Oh, no,
ANC position right now, hold on, Josh. ANC position right now, you can't be asking us for something we do not have. Is that not their language?
That is their argument.
Okay. Now, how can, this is from ANC office, saying they have asked all parties to come and pick up their final copy, and that those copies were at ANC headquarters. The Secretary General allowed to ask, and Unity Party was the only party that picked up a copy. So then there are how many copies left, Josh?
I think there should be 3 copies there.
There have been 3 copies. So how come they are telling us now they don't have this? This was let me look at the date this thing was sent.
Maybe
out.
you're not reading
this
well.
Is January 30th. Hold on, Josh.
You're not reading well.
Oh, no, hold on, Josh. I'm reading well. This is January 30th.
Can you take a screenshot and post it for the audience?
I will send the whole thing to you.
No, post it. I want you to take a screenshot and post it so your audience can see. Because I know the ANC people. Lying is what they do.
George, you have your time. Let me lay it down. This is January 30th, 2022.
Okay.
This came from the office of Mr. Cummings. And they are saying in their write-up that they have asked all the parties to come and pick up their copy. So I asked this question. How you say the copies are here in our office at the headquarters of ANC, and now in code you are saying you can't be asking us for something we do not have. Now I would think that the other parties pick up their copies. That is why you don't have any. And even at that, what's about your own copy? You don't even have your own copy too?
So, Mr. Sieh, here's one thing I also want us to look at when it comes to the issue of the final. When the ANC use the word final, what they're referring to, it could be the amended version by the lawyers, or it could be the version that was submitted to NEC. So we have to first understand which copy exactly they will take. Because again, you and I know, was it what was signed on May 19th? Was that the copy that was given to him? Was it what was submitted to NEC? Based on what you're reading, say the final that was submitted. So again, it still does not trash Ure's argument.
George,
right?
let me provide a based on the write-up. You understand?
Yes.
Prior before that line, they said July 14, 2020, ANC SG notarized FA and filed a National Election Commission.
So that means that was
then
the version
it was
that was submitted.
Yeah. So that is the original that was filed.
Yes.
And that there were copies at ANC headquarters for the other parties to pick up. So, George, let me ask you, does Unity Party have its copy that will pick up by your Secretary General?
So again, Mr. Sieh, I will not lie to you. It's possible, but now my point here in answering this question, because I wanted to bring people to know this. I don't know which version of the copy that they picked up. You getting my point?
I get your point.
Yeah. So it is true that Mo may have picked up a copy. It could be, because I don't think Mr. Elisha would not say that if he didn't. But my question, I want to be very clear, Mr.
And George, how will you not know? You are a leader. I mean, if anybody talks for Unity Party, you are the one. So you should be well informed, George. I know you love information.
I know. Listen, the reason why I chose not to look at the date when this whole thing happened, we're talking about now in January, based on what you just read, right? We're talking about this CPP contention happening from the time before the year ended. It has been a saga. So if I was even advising more, I would not have advised more to go and get any document at this particular point in time, given the fact that it has already been reported by Ure that what was submitted to NEC is different from what was signed. But however, I trust Mo's judgment. I don't know what he has. I can confirm that for you, but I will say this, Mr. Sieh.
Please do.
I will, you know me, I will do and get back to you. But I just want to say this. What copy are we referring to as the original?
The notarized copy that was filed with the National Election Commission.
Now that is
based on this report from ANC.
Based on that copy, Mr. Ure is now alleging that what he signed, that he felt was the original, is not what was submitted.
Okay.
Isn't that the argument?
I follow that.
So that is the argument. So now it brings into question what was actually submitted then. And we know what
the allegation is. So may I ask this question then, Josh? Mr. Ure said that according to his sources at the National Election Commission, there was something nefarious done to the document. And we're coming to the politics, the side that I like. Mr. Ure is supporting Mr. Boaka. At the time he alleged this alteration, he has already taken a side. He's supporting Vice President Joseph Yuman Boaka. This was Cummings now, who was now following in line as assumed by all the leaders. Cummings cannot say he won't be the head for Vice President Joseph Yuman Boaka to be Vice President. No, it's not going to be possible. I think Cummings is smart enough to know that, that is a good position for him to be in. But now they're getting the shock of their life. You will say, whoa, how do we grab this guy? This guy here trying to play hardball with us, and we'll be in this game. He alleges. And fast forward, they are in court today. The question is, George, it is obvious. The fact that there was no noise made about this thing, CPP got certificated, CPP went to election, CPP earned victories, CPP was in kumbaya moment, but now in court because the center cannot hold. This is political. This is not about alteration.
Mr. Sieh, one thing I've always learned to do is to respect everybody's right to freedom of expression, and people are entitled to their opinion. Mm-hmm. However, if you are the government in waiting as the opposition, the expectation is that when you come to power, you will be able to lead with honesty, integrity, and transparency. Mm-hmm. And I think Mr. Ure did the right thing. It was good that he was able to bring out things that he felt was not right in the CPP. And I want to thank him for it. We are in court because we must not forget Mr. Sieh. The ANC folks, Mr. Cummings and his entire group, they challenged Mr. Ure to take them to court. Do you remember? I remember. That if they believe that anything wrong was done, that Ure should take them to court. Mr. Ure is only serving Mr. Cummings the cup of coffee he asked for. I don't think Ure has done anything wrong to Mr. Cummings. Look, Mr. Sieh, I want to take Ure's words and trust him for what he said. Mr. Ure did an interview on the BBC, and you heard what Ure said. Ure said, had Mr. Cummings taken responsibility, and I apologize to his colleagues, we will not be in the court. Mm-hmm. That itself shows that the other leaders in the CPP were willing to stay put the interests of the CPP first. You and I should attest to the Liberian people. It was Mr. Cummings who were demanding an apology. So think about it, Mr. Sieh. So they are being in the court today. It's not political. I think it's someone trying to prove that who was right or who was wrong. And so we should not see it as political. While it is true they are political leaders, I don't want to say it is political. I think it is an opportunity to show to the Liberian people that if Mr. Cummings is this transparent and this clean, honest, dedicated man that they clean, then let's see what it is. So again, you just read something from his office, from his Secretary General. Now the man is in the court and saying he don't have the documents. So I'm pretty sure these are things that will be submitted in the court and to the lawyers, so people will have them. So I think Mr. Ure did a good job for the Liberian people to know if indeed Mr. Cummings is an honest man and the ANC is truly a party of integrity.
And George, there is a piece here. I know those in the Unity Party man say they are not party to this conflict. This is a case filed by Ure against Cummings. I know that smart politics, and you have been doing very good job with that. I'm not sure whether the dividend going to land well. I know you're laughing, but may I ask the question?
I'm only laughing because you want to
George, may I ask this question? May I ask the question, George? So Mo Ali, according to the ANC, pick up the Unity Party's copy of the notarized and final version that was filed with the National Election Commission as a responsible party. That this conflict affects one way or the other, if you look at it, fairly, right? Have you compared the copy that was filed with NEC and the copy that you have in your possession? Because they are saying Mo Ali pick up the Unity Party's copy. Have Unity Party done that work to say, look, let's look, because I'm asking this question because your side is also saying that when Nyombli asked the NEC for a copy, the NEC was able to give Nyombli a copy. So you have a copy of what was filed. Have you compared that with the carpet that Mo Ali picked up to know whether there was changes for you to speak to the Liberian people where we are on this document? Have you?
Mr. Sieh, definitively, based on our review, we must not forget that the political leader of the Unity Party and other political leaders met at the Calabash where a committee was constituted. Mr. Cummings was also part of that meeting, and he made recommendations of his representation at that committee. Mr. Sieh, that is the committee report that we have in our hand here.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And that on that committee, Mo Ali served on that committee. And that committee also establishes the committee report. You've read it. That the procedures were not followed, that the documents are not the same. So I don't know what you want us to say again.
That
so
there were rearrangements, realignments and all that.
So again, Mr. Sieh, listen, this is why we've done the most honorable thing as the most responsible party. We don't believe there's a need for us to be asked.
So the answer to my question is that there was no need for that because you have
an investigative report. We already did a review and we did an investigation, Mr. Sieh. So we already have the report. And this investigation was done by the 4 parties. So why is it that we investigated will go out again be running around? We already established that Mr. Cummings did not follow the procedures. Mr. Cummings did not follow the guidelines set up by the CPP. And we believe that the documents were altered. Simple.
So fast forward, George, this noise became like a wildfire. And the CPP, as we know it, is not in the place it was when the Liberian people were putting their trust in the CPP. Whoever can be seen as the boogeyman here, a first-day political union that was promising politically, and I'm speaking politics to those of you who don't understand it, it's up to you. My question, George, is Mr. Boakai, the vice president, his experience, he's been around. According to him, he has the track record of resolving issues. He made a commitment to the world, not only Liberians, because he was on a BBC interview. He said, I will be going to Monrovia. I have the track record of resolving issues. When I get to Monrovia, the PP internal wranglings will be resolved. He promised the world. Where is Joseph Yaman Boakai? Is he working on the promise he made? Because from what we see, this thing is falling apart, George.
Mr. Sieh, I want to say thank you for that brilliant question. We must not forget, upon his arrival from the United States, former Vice President Boakai invited various political CPP political leaders. If you can record the invitation that was sent to Mr. Cummings, Mr. Cummings responded and said that there was no agenda. You can recall there was an amendment made, and the agenda was sent to him. It was followed by another excuse. The agenda didn't arrive on time. He had different.
No, George, that was before the trip to America. Please
yeah, no. But even when when the vice president went back, they were invited to a meeting.
Okay.
If you can record, he did not show up to that meeting. But now I will say this, and I think all of us out in the public, we need to be cognizant of what is at stake now, Mr. Sieh. Asking for Ambassador Boakai to speak out now. We must not forget there's an ongoing case at the court, Criminal Court A, at the Temple of Justice. Any one of those political leaders now, they could either be a state witness or just a witness in that case. So I don't think it would be a prudent thing now.
George, that is the fact. It was reported that Vice President Joseph Boakai would be a state witness. So go ahead.
For me, I'm only using the legal understanding here. Okay, from what we know following. So again, Mr. Sieh, so I think those who are asking why he can't do anything now that this case is in court, it is basically out of his hand. You have to understand, because the very first thing we must not.
But Josh, he could be working behind the scene.
But you don't know what he's doing. You and myself, we're in America.
Are you confirming that he's doing something?
He is. He is very much engaged. He is speaking out to leaders. The other time, let us not forget, Mr. Sieh, there was a report of a meeting between Ambassador Boyka and Mr. Cummings in Ghana. Right? That itself shows
that meeting, from what was reported, was intended to buy him out. Is that
no,
true?
Mr. Sieh, again, the fact that he demonstrated his willingness to be in a room with Mr. Cummings, that is showing his experience. That is showing his ability to negotiate. That is showing his ability to be able to say, I don't like what
was the meeting about, George? What was the meeting about? Liberian people need to know the fact. What was the meeting about?
Yes, I will classify it based on what I know. There have not been much of the details released to me. So I don't want to speculate, especially when it involves meetings of this nature. It is what is out there that we know. But all I can say to you, Mr. Sieh, the two leaders met. The two political leaders met in Ghana.
George, I expect you to speak with authority on this issue. You are close to the vice president.
I know what you want out of this.
Talk to the vice president anytime you want to.
I know what you want out of this. And
we in the media want to know the facts, George.
Yeah, but Mr. Sieh, okay, let me use the American word, classified.
Yeah, okay. Then
classified.
That will answer my question. But may I ask the question, George, quickly? Before this quote, we all knew this thing was a serious trouble in the CPP. And Vice President Joseph Boyka, I will give it to him, and that is the fact, right? He has the experience, he's been around. And he has seen collaboration in the past fail. And some of those failures started with the kind of things that were going on in the CPP. What did he do before court case that you know of, to have prevented this chaos? Did he do anything?
Mr. Sieh, I would say this to you. It was Ambassador Boyka's wishes that this CPP really materialized. I recalled, I have been one of those hardliners from his camp who never wished for this CPP. I don't hide that position. I've expressed that openly, that I never wanted the CPP. That's not something I had. What I wanted out of the CPP was not what I got. What I wanted was a firm commitment from all parties that we all will run individually. Whoever makes it to the runoff will have the support of every other party 150%. That is what I wanted. However, my individual view does not supersede the institution view. And my party, the Unity Party, made a position, and therefore I go with their position, and I respect my party's view. And that is how we remain humble and loyal to the CPP. So asking a guy like me, who have been a hardliner to the CPP, will not be the good guy, because you know my stand. But I'll tell you this. I recall one of our conversations where the former vice president told me very clear. He made it very clear to me. He said, George, he said, the CPP must work. He said, we must do all we can to make it work. In as much as I was very much skeptical, but again, respecting his judgment, believing in him as my political leader.
George, why you did not disagree with him, given that you had the insight that they will not go well? Why could you not disagree? And that's the problem I have with those of you who have the right to support political leaders. And I have the sense that some of you don't really stand your ground and say, no. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong. Why couldn't you have disagreed with him?
Let me say this. When you express your disagreement or your opposition to a position of your leader, that's disagreement. But you must not forget, the Unity Party is not Ambassador Boyka. The party made a decision. Boyka and myself, we are individuals, regardless of our position in the party. Our individual view does not have nothing to do with the Unity Party view. The Unity Party is the institution. If Boyka and myself view is more important, then we form our own party. As long as we are part of the Unity Party, what the party wants is what we're going to happen. And you must not forget, in a place where we believe in majority rule, our party made a decision, and we all abide and respect it. I've made it clear.
And you think that was a good decision by your party?
Let me say this, Mr. Sieh. I think my party's intention was not bad at all. It was a good thing.
Will you say that was poor judgment on the part of your party?
I don't think so. I think If everything had worked,
why would you not say so when that decision has turned out to be as bad as we see it now?
It has only turned out to be as bad as we see it because one man got desperate, and out of his desperation, will begin to do things that undermine the ability of the collaboration to function. Let me say this, Mr. Sieh, we have to be honest when we discuss these issues. And I know this is why many people don't like me. But let's be honest here. If Mr. Cummings had expanded the CPP and had brought in new parties through his ANC, let's say the ANC is a member of the CPP, but if the ANC could have been able to incorporate other parties from outside of the CPP, that would have strengthened Mr. Cummings' position in the CPP. Instead, what did Mr. Cummings do? Begin to undermine in the very same CPP. If the CPP consists of 100 members, and we divide it evenly and say 25-25, if you recruit from Liberty Party, it is there the same 100 members. You're not doing anything different. If you take 10 from Liberty Party and they are left with 15 and ANC get 35, it is still the same 100 members that you got.
Did he violate any law by doing that, George? Did he violate any law by doing that?
Mr. Sieh, listen. It is not constitutionally wrong when a prostitute decides to run for president in the Republic of Liberia. It is not a law. It is not a law that someone who was once a convicted felon can run for president. It's not a law. But the expectation is that you will do what is right. That is where when people speak in terms of morality and ethical practices.
You sure a convicted felon can run for the presidency?
Mr. Sieh, after your rights are restored, okay. When we go back, after your rights are restored, we must not forget the Constitution is clear.
Okay.
So when we speak, we must. So I'm just saying, because the Constitution does not say that a prostitute cannot run for president, it is up to the electorates. So society requires that we as individuals, that we do what is right. Why is it today we are saying that the type of people we elect to go to Congress, they are a representation of us. If Mr. Sieh and myself do have value, do have principles, then we should be able to elect people that will represent those aspirations, those values, and those ethical beliefs of ours. And so I will say this, we expected Mr. Cummings to have expanded the CPP. We didn't know that Mr. Cummings would have been in the CPP to undermine his fellow colleagues in the CPP. And that is the problem with the CPP.
Josh, you want to pull by your prostitute example? You know this platform. I don't know. That won't jump from your mouth, my man.
I will
listen. Pull it back. Yeah.
Okay, let me say this. Mm-hmm. Maybe if you want me to use the word sex worker, but again, at the end of the day, a sex worker is someone who trades sex for money. It is a job.
I will leave it because the feminist. Josh, you know how you and myself get in trouble.
Okay, we're not getting in trouble. Let me pull it back and just say, Mr. Sieh, I just wanted to say to you, I want to use an extreme scenario so people can understand that because the law does not stop this person, that does not mean you yourself can do the right thing. Look, Mr. Sieh, let me be honest.
Maybe you could use a word criminal instead of going to our sisters.
Okay, I'll put that back. But Mr. Sieh, let me say this. Mr. Cummings should have understood that if you undermine the leadership within the Liberty Party and you begin to recruit from in the Liberty Party, you're not helping the CPP because you are causing problem within the CPP. Mr. Cummings should have gone to recruit from the Rainbow Alliance. Because there are 11 parties there. Bring 2 of those parties to join the ANC.
And George, you continue. Hold on, George. Let me hold you there. You continue to say Mr. Cummings should have. There are other leaders because the bigger picture you're trying the bigger point you're trying to make here is
I'm working for FOL.
The bigger point. FOL. Say again.
They say I'm unemployed, so I'm employed on FOL.
Oh, George, the people don't know you. That's why they say that. They don't know you. That's why they say that. So the bigger point you're trying to make there is that the CPP term needed to be enlarged, and you are saying Mr. Cummings should have done so. Fair point. But we can also say they normally do that when she was head. Did Ure do that when he was head?
No,
is Mr. Bwaka, let me learn my point, Josh. Let me learn my point, Josh. Is Mr. Bwaka doing that now that he is chair? All of these leaders, if what you are saying is something that, I agree with that, all of them have failed. Do you agree?
No, let me say why. No, maybe the context in which I said it. What I was trying to say is that, Mr. Sieh, if the CPP consists of 4 parties, right? But if Mr. Cummings was able to take the ANC and recruit 5 parties to join the ANC, the ANC might just be 1 party in the CPP, but don't forget that ANC consists of 5 parties.
Right.
What have that done?
It will still remain 1 party,
but it would have expanded the CPP. That's where I'm coming from.
It will have still, the ANC will still be able to produce just the delegates set up.
Yeah, but it would have expanded the base of the CPP. Getting me on that? That's what I'm saying. So my point is, Mr. Sieh, my point here is that as Mr. Sieh, we live in a house. If we have one, it's a 4-bedroom house. You and your wife, me and my wife, someone else's wife, but you decide that for you to go hang out, you recruit the other man's wife in his room. How are you going to build peace in that house? That's what happened in the CPP.
George, may I ask the question? May I ask the question quickly, George?
Go ahead.
The CPP is where it is now. There's this school of thought that if anybody would have prevented this chaos that you have on your hands now, that person or that political party should have been the Unity Party. That school of thought is saying, yes, why? In 2005, Madam Sieh laid down an example for you. She wanted to win, and she knew that one single party could not win. Mr. Bwaka is on record for saying that one party cannot just win it. So she brought Lab, your former party. That is why you are Unity Party today, because your party, the Liberian Action Party, were brought on board. You know the other parties that were brought on board. Ellen had no noise. She won the election. George Weah, let me let my point. George,
I'm giving the party the Liberian Unification Party.
The Liberian Unification Party. Thank you, George. I appreciate that. George Weah, the one we all say is now politically savvy. When he saw that he could not win, he did the same thing. You understand? Why couldn't Unity Party, that having to be the biggest party, could not have done something like that? Joseph Bwaka, who have been around, saw this example by Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. Why couldn't he have done that to have prevented this mess? This thing is so because of Unity Party. Somebody may argue.
So, Mr. Sieh, again, let me say this. Anybody can argue what they want to argue. It is their right, and I strongly respect everybody's right to freely express himself. But again, we must not forget, Mr. Bwaka inherited the hand that was dealt to him. Mr. Bwaka's turning over ceremony, don't forget, Mr. Cummings, of all the other turning over ceremony, Ambassador Bwaka made it his duty to be there. Regardless of whatever plan he may have had, whatever arrangement, he demonstrated leadership to show that unity. He made sure to be at every turning over ceremony. When it came to Ambassador Bwaka's time, Mr. Cummings refused to show up. Not only that, Ambassador Bwaka have extended invitations to Mr. Cummings that which he has turned down. We have to be able to speak to these issues because the Unity Party remain the biggest party. Because Ambassador Bwaka holds all the experience, that does not mean he is going to force Mr. Cummings into submission, because it is not Ambassador Bwaka's will to impose himself upon people. We believe that the most responsible and honorable thing to do is for people, like-minded people. You and myself don't agree on a lot of things. I always refer to FOL as the butcher hall for Ambassador Bwaka, but I come here, right? So again, that respect exists. But we invited you. When the Unity Party decided that Ambassador Bwaka is our candidate, Mr. Cummings was the first to jump on and say, no, it's this and this and that. He criticized it, condemned it, and said he can't show up. So again, Mr. Sieh, I will say this to you. The Unity Party, we could build alliances. We've done it. The UP have the history of building alliances. And this is why we continue to say.
And you failed to do
No, we have not. Listen, Mr. Sieh. Election is in 2023. Alliances, the opportunity for the formation of alliances always exists. We strongly believe where we are. We like our position.
Are you talking about CUP, collaboration of Unity Party?
Right now, we do have a ongoing court case, and we will let this play out, because don't forget,
Mr. Ure is on record that even though this is taking long, that you people are working on it. And when he said you people working on it, he's talking about his candidate, Mr. Boaka, his team working on it. Is there anything in the making by your team for a collaboration, George?
There are a lot of things on the assembly. There are a lot of things on the assembly line that we have to wait and see what the finished goods will be. But I can assure the Liberian people they will be happy.
But there's something in the assembly line, you said.
There's something on the assembly line. That I can say to you. There's something on the assembly line.
Is the code name CUP?
Again, Mr. Sieh, one thing I like about you journalists, it is your right to ask questions because you need answers. But I will say this to you. We'll leave it where they are because I don't speculate. But I'm hopeful that come what may, with the karate kung fu master we now have in Liberia, the Liberian people know what is at stake. And there's no way George Weah can be president.
And George, finally, before I go to another segment, you is one person I listen to who always talking about negotiating from a position of strength. Negotiating from a
position. Are you saying you be coming to take notes?
That is your favorite line. I listen to you. I would think that Mr. Boaka, with his experience, did not negotiate from the position of strength when it came to the arrangement of the CPP. I would have expected Mr. Boaka to say, gentlemen, let's look at the election results. Akin with nearly 500,000 votes. The rest of you didn't even come halfway. So if we want to pull a collaboration together, I go number one, and then we can discuss who goes number two. That would have been somebody negotiating from the position of strength. If that were done, maybe you'll be in a much better place. Did Mr. Boaka negotiate from a position of strength? That's my question.
You see, Mr. Sieh, again, I will say this to you. That is the question some of us have asked. And it should not be Mr. Boaka, the Unity Party. Remember this. I've always said to you that Boaka is just one individual. The party
he has been the head. He was the head.
So again, let me say this. I think that we should take responsibility for. My party should take responsibility. I don't think my party negotiated from the position of strength. That was one of my major arguments. That is one of the reasons why I didn't support the whole issue of the CPP. Because, Mr. Sieh, since you brought up the numbers, right? If we look at the 2017 numbers, the CPP, the makeup of the CPP, the Liberty Party, ALP, LP, and the Liberty Party, ANC, and the UP, make up 45% of the total vote that were gathered in the first round, right? Of that 45%, the Unity Party accounts for 28.8% of that vote.
That is correct.
Which means if you put the other three together, they do not have what we got.
No.
So there was no way we should have gone to any negotiation agreeing that we were equal. However, again, Mr. Sieh, I think Liberians who question Ambassador Boaka's leadership, I think they should also look at this and say that this man indeed was not greedy. This man indeed was honest. Because if it would have been Cummings, I'm pretty sure it would have been a different thing today. Imagine a man who got 7.
And would you have fought him? Would you have,
I don't think Ambassador Boaka, knowing Ambassador Boaka, I don't think we would have done that. So what this should show to the Liberian people, that Ambassador Boaka is not desperate, that Ambassador Boaka is a leader, that this man is willing, regardless of his strength. He still look at a man with 7.2% and say we are equal. So I think the Liberian people should see this, that what Ambassador Boaka demonstrated, Mr. Sieh, it is his willingness to build something called the CPP. And on the basis of that, my dear good friend and brother, I will say this, as a party, I had this agreement. You ask Chairman Amin Moda, he will tell you that George Lobbo have made his position clear to me. But again, Mr. Sieh, I will say this to you. I belong to an institution. My individual views will be my individual views. The institution that I belong to, their view, their position surpasses my view. If I don't like my institution position, it is my right to leave it and go form my own institution. But until then, I stand with my party. I've expressed my disagreement on it. But I think, yes, my party should have negotiated from a position of strength. But again, I think my party, that is where you know now, those who say the Unity Party feel entitled, I think you should turn it around and say the Unity Party was gracious, was grateful, was very, very kind to Liberty Party, to the ALP, and the ANC, because we could have gone in there and said, no, we are not equals. But yet then, in the interest of unity, in the interest of peace, in the interest of rescuing Liberia, Ambassador Boakai went into that collaboration and agreeing that we're equal. That is what he did.
Thank you, George. Finally, before we go to the course here and maybe a few comments, the CPP framework says you are equal. That was the weakness from which you negotiated. Blame yourself. So the issue that we were gracious, that was a decision you make in Unity Party. So to say that Cummings is greedy because he does not want to go number one, when the framework says there have to be primary and all that, is not fair to Cummings. And what is wrong with somebody wanting something? Mr. Boakai wants it. Cummings wants it. You are not saying Mr. Boakai is greedy. He who have been around, he who have served as vice president, you're not saying he's greedy, but you are saying Cummings is greedy. It's politics, but I don't think that is a fair statement to Cummings. The other thing is that this court case now is benefiting Mr. Boakai. And that is why you are on record for saying Mr. Cummings cannot no longer claim that he's Mr. Clean Hands. He is a criminal defendant.
Are you saying that today? Those are your words, right?
George, Mr. Cummings is a criminal defendant legally.
Okay.
Because he is a defendant in a criminal case that will file against him. That is the law. But he is not a criminal.
No.
Until the court hands down a decision that he is. And these are the facts. And people need to take the sentiment out of it. And I can say that I've said that many times, by the way. So my question here is, George, how is Mr. Cummings greedy and Mr. Boakai not greedy when these two individuals have the right to compete in the democratic process? And how you think that this court case is not benefiting Mr. Boakai, and that is why he's laying back, because it's benefiting him.
Let me say this to you. When we speak in terms of desperation and greed, Mr. Sieh, you admitted here that our party did not negotiate from a position of strength. We could have done that, but yet then we felt the need to accommodate those other parties.
And may I add this in? I hate to do the judge. Let me add this. Will we also say, saying Cummings is a criminal defendant, will Mr. Boakai be a criminal witness?
Oh, it's fair to say it, but guess what? At the end of the day, a witness, he's a witness. If you're witnessing a criminal case, then yeah, you're a criminal witness. That does not mean it has nothing to do with you. You just go in there to testify, especially.
And we also say Ure is a criminal plaintiff.
Oh, you can say what you can say. Any that's absolutely right. But guess what now? Ure is a plaintiff, is a criminal plaintiff because he brought a fraudulent case against criminal defendant Ellis Cummings. Now, let me answer this question here for you, Mr. Sieh. When we speak in terms of desperation, there have been no movement from the Unity Party in terms of trying to undermine the ANC or Mr. Cummings' leadership in the ANC by trying to recruit from within the ANC. There have been no such move. There have been no move from the Unity Party trying to recruit from within the ALP, because we believe that if we are in a collaboration, why would we do that? That's just going to bring problem within the group. But let's look at Mr. Cummings' track record. Let's go back to the tape. Even though ANC folks shamelessly, they were on Facebook lying that that was the work of the Unity Party. Later, it will be revealed that the UP had nothing to do with the tape. It was just something that were in the workings, and the Lord decided to reveal Mr. Cummings' plans. Later on, we'll come out to find out that Mr. Alexander B. Cummings, through Sano, you recall, an executive of the Liberty Party, who stated on Spoon that Mr. Ability went to the National Executive Meeting and told them that Mr. Cummings had promised the Liberty Party $5 million for their support. So we have not done these things. Not only that, we believe that the disintegration of the Liberty Party, one of the funding party of the CPP, was the nefarious dealings of Mr. Cummings. Today, I think it is clear now that it has manifested itself, we will see the continued disrespect of the political leader of the LP, Senator Lawrence. Yet then Mr. Cummings will defy her and will show up to the Liberty Party headquarters. In that defiance, we'll see a kangaroo convention to endorse Mr. Cummings. So again, Mr. Sieh, I mean, you have not seen those things from the Unity Party. You have not heard of those moves from Joseph.
And George, I know you're about to land there. Well, may you land with this. Given what you said, this Cummings, in all fairness, if I looking at the content of what you just provided, right, that this guy is powerful.
Oh,
because this guy is so powerful, is doing all of these things, and everybody, oh, it's coming. He's destabilizing political parties. He's using money. This guy must be very powerful, right? Maybe that's why you guys are afraid and drinking, black voting, no convention and all that. I mean, no primaries and all that, right? You are afraid of him.
No, Mr. Sieh, let me be very clear with you. On the issue of bringing up black voting, I think it was it was just one of the most ignorant arguments being made by the ANC folks. If you read the CPP document itself, it does not state how a party should vote at a convention. It was never stated. What it said that the party will set up a committee that will be responsible for the convention, and that committee will outline the guidelines of how voting will be done. The Unity Party just said for us, because the Unity Party will definitely be part of the committee, that for us, we want to vote in black. I don't know what is the need to argue on that. That was it. Some people could, maybe ALP could come and say, for us, we want to vote by a resolution. Are we going to say we deny them? You have no right, more right than the other party. The notion that ANC people would think that they have the right to say what they want to say, it's all right. Let's say the ANC people say, we want the election to be open ballot or an open process where one person stand up, you vote in public. It is their right to say it. You will not see me argue with them. But this notion that when we say we want to vote black voting and they come out and start crying, that's to tell us that they just being inexperienced, and that's just ignorance. So I will say this to you. If Mr. Cummings were that powerful, Mr. Sieh, let me say this. I will give Mr. Cummings credit on one thing. Since the 2017 election, Mr. Cummings has really traveled the country. He has been one politician that has really traveled. And I'm at this point, if I was advising Cummings or if I was supporting Mr. Cummings, I think we would have been doing a complete overall assessment of the gains we've made. Mr. Sieh, with all the investment being made, of all these travels, Mr. Cummings, it seemed to be that the more he travels, his momentum goes away from him. Sad, I'm just saying, man. We have not seen those things materialize. It has not transitioned into, look, let's look at the data in the country.
Thank you, George.
It's struggling.
Let's leave it there.
I mean, it's sad for us. Mr.
I mean,
Cummings,
it's a fair point you
I mean, I just want to be real with him.
I mean, that
Mr.
is a fair
Cummings,
point.
with all the travels he's made, there have been
That
no
is a fair
momentum.
point.
At what point in time will his message resonate?
But George, you have not
done
done a survey. You have not done an assessment.
We follow all the opinion polls in the country, Mr. Sieh. Every single poll in Liberia, Mr. Cummings can barely come number 3 before I say number 4. Dr. Cassell at some point in time is winning Cummings.
All right, let's leave it there.
That's the sad part about it.
Let's leave it there. I know you're being a little more political there. Folks in cyberspace, this is the Hour of Politics with me, Ansony Sieh, your host here at Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. George Preston Lobbo is an executive of Unity Party USA and Canada. The main position is B, and that is the Giuseppe. The man is JMB right-hand son. Wow.
No, don't say son, because when you use the word son, people, that is where people go and say, JMB believes in nepotism. I'm his relatives. You know that.
All right. He's JMB surrogate.
Just say surrogate or close confidant. That's it.
Close confidant. So, folks, the number to call, 605-313-6004. The code to enter is 791-403 pound. Just take your phone and start to take notes so that you can answer. We have 15 minutes left. We want our callers to participate. Please, before join the discussion, that number is also in the strolling text below. That is the only number you should call so you can participate. We will take a short break. When we come back, we'll start taking your calls. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
Oh, Dennis Jah, thank you. I'm here in control, so Dennis, just park your Satoka and be somewhere. Josh, I'm sure you are ready. Let's go to the phone line. We see people here. They are all set and fire and ready to roll. Let me increase the volume so we can hear them loud and clear. Our first caller here is Matthew. Matthew, let's hear you. You have 1 minute, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And hello, my brother Josh.
How you doing, sir?
I'm the interim chairman for Unity Party, USA, Canada, Illinois chapter. I have a question from the Lobbo.
Mm-hmm.
The question was it simple that the CPP document that was filed with NEC, was it a photocopy or was it an original copy? That's my question.
Thank you so very much. George, mark that down. Let me take
what was filed with NEC, is it an original or photocopy?
Yeah. Mr. Kessley Double, let us hear you, my friend.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, guy. See, how you doing?
I'm doing fine.
And hi, Lobbo.
How you doing, my dear brother?
Go back to this leadership thing we keep talking about every time it's not coming in PMD.
Mm-hmm.
We should let people to know that Alexander Cummings succeeded because he had the full support of his colleagues. That was the reason why the CPP were in full flesh. That was the reason why we even won those seats during the 2020 election. Mm-hmm. And then he started playing bad politics when his colleagues took over. He refused. He became a rebel. From the moment John Buchanan took over, Alexander Cummings refused to work with his colleagues. Every time they call him to a meeting, he refused to go to meetings. Every time, even with this thing going to court today, and it's not coming, he himself requested for court. You can remember when this whole document business came out, this thing was discussed in-house on so many occasions. He refused to listen to his colleagues. And then later on, they were even the one who brought the whole criminal document outside in the public. This one was not brought in the public, it was ANC that brought it to the public. Right? And he refused. And he said that because people started lying on him about the whole criminal document, if they don't carry the court, he was going to go to court. So why are we complaining about the whole court case and saying that Joseph Yuma Baka is working along with you and was coming himself agreed that he wanted to go to court? Why should we complain about court case right now?
All right.
And I think it's late right now. He has blundered, and I think he should have himself to blame and start blaming all the people all around the place. And the criminal document, they themselves agreed that the document was author. Cummings has agreed on it. The Secretary General of the ANC has explained fully in his PowerPoint presentation that the document was author. So let's accept that.
Thank you. All right, that was Kessley Double, a supporter of the Unity Party. Let's hear from this caller joining us from Minneapolis. Phone number ending in 4023. Let's hear you quickly. You have a minute.
Yeah, Ansony, this Sarah calling from Minneapolis. Hi, Lobbo.
President Mom.
So many topics. I'm just gonna pick point one or two.
Okay.
First of all, this whole idea that you got how you acting Lobbo negotiating for a position of strength. Mm-hmm. And he was there saying that, Joseph Boaga got 28% and Cummings got 7%. Mm-hmm. But here is a man who fundamentally believed that the election of 2017 was fraudulent. Mm-hmm. If the election is fraudulent, then all the numbers coming from the election cannot be real. So how do you tell whether Boaga got 24 or 28% and Cummings get 7% of the election was fraudulent? And the second thing, I hear Lobbo talking about block voting. Black voting happens within a political institution. I mean, it's a single party. You don't go into a collaboration, heading into a convention, and you talk about black voting. Because if everybody do black voting, then how do we come up with the ultimate winner in a convention? A convention, the delegates are not pledged. They are open to anybody. So you have that leverage to negotiate and take delegates from anywhere, because the only way you can win. So the whole idea that, Cummings being expanded, who expand a party when you cannot even tell if it's going to be a nominee of the particular alliance?
Briselemon.
We won both seats. Yes.
Let me hold you to the point you made. Good point that block voting is only done when you have a political entity or an institution that is a single institution. If I heard you right, the CPP got certified as a unit. So can we say that it was right for them to say, "Hey, we're going to do block voting"? Given by
you answer your own question. Thank you.
It cannot be right. They got certified as a block, but they are full collaborative. Don't forget, every individual party saying are right. They take out their rules and regulations govern their own political institutions. So yes, they operate as a block, but they are four individual parties operating under one banner. That's a whole different thing.
Okay.
So how do we institute block voting when four collaborating parties competing for the ultimate seat? How that work?
All right.
How that work? I'll answer that how it works.
Thank you. Let me take this caller joining us from Philadelphia. Phone number ending in 5615. Let me hear you your name.
Hey, my name is Clement Stomper, and I call from Austin, Texas.
Oh, okay. Let me hear you quickly.
Following your conversations over the last few weeks, I tried to contribute to your show when it comes to Alexander Cummings. So, personally, what I thought is going on with Cummings is that I don't understand whether he does understand the Liberian politics. Liberian people do not vote for strangers in most cases. You may count all of the money, and I heard you saying that he's very powerful because he tried to buy out the Liberty Party and folks of others within the political arena of Nigeria. That does not really translate into votes in the Nigerian politics. Secondly, Cummings does not really understand how do you fight a legal battle and you accuse the legal system of colliding with the executive branch. Eventually, you will want to go to the Supreme Court if you lost a case at the lower court. Now, the people you asking to solve your problem or to reinvestigate your case, shouldn't case it goes that far, they are the same people that you insulted yesterday. So Tommy Dan, the educated man, I still do not understand what the outrage is about because it's been taken to court.
All right.
Why not we follow the fair process if we want to be leaders?
Thank you.
Thirdly, oh, you cut me off?
No, I'm not cutting you. I want you to conclude because of time, please. Make your final point. Make your final point.
So my next point we have done with the CPP and the actual documented question. I think the CPP documented question did not follow from all that I've heard about it. It didn't follow the channels to get to the point of being committed to the National Elections Commission.
That's true.
Congress must have come up with an idea to revisit the document, came up with new resolution points within the document. But if you didn't follow the process of submitting it, all you need to do is to admit that, look, gentlemen, the intent was not biased. But I'm sorry that it went this way, but let's fix it.
All right.
You know?
Thank you.
There's always a second chance for everything.
Thank you. Josh, let us hear you there too, with the answers. Josh, let me take the one quickly from Jimmy Eastman. Okay, Jimmy, quickly, you have a minute.
Hey, gentlemen, very good discussion. Mr. Lobbo, I do appreciate your points. And of course, Rodney, you know you're on point all the time. But here's the thing. Block voting, unless it's a very popular and unanimous vote, that is, the candidate is overwhelmingly popular and there's absolutely no need for contesting, then you have block voting. But if you want to have a true contest, then why are you trying to control your people? it's more dictatorial what you're doing when people are contesting and you want to impose black voting. You are being dictatorial. Do we want a dictatorship? So definitely, there should not be a reason for black voting if you want a true contest. When will we start electing people based on their merit, not a coronation or an indictment that we have to have there?
Thank you, Jimmy.
Let's truly give everybody a chance, and so that whoever is the most popular person wins the nomination.
Thank you. Thank you. That will do it for calls, folks. We are sorry because of time. George, please respond to the questions.
Let me do that.
They gave you a closing.
Thank you. Let me go to Jimmy Eastman. I think he raised a brilliant point. But Jimmy, let me say this to you. Why it is true, one true context. The spirit in which we formulated the CPP, that context itself, if we wanted to allow the process to play out and we wanted transparency, is it fair for us to also begin by asking, why would someone be in a party and begin to undermine other political institutions that he's in a collaboration with? That's the genesis of the problem. So some of these things feel into all of that. But I want us to understand something. The issue of black voting, it is constitutional, it is democratic, and there's nothing wrong with it. And again, here's Ansony. The process leading up to black voting, people fail to understand. What the Unity Party said was that there were going to be resolution signed by its delegates. Now, if someone believes that they don't want boycott, they don't have to sign up for sign the resolution. So we still had a lot of things that could have happened. However, I just want to leave it there and say, if we're going to be speaking on the issue of transparency, then let us also first say, I think if we allow the process to play out, not undermining and bringing problem in the Liberty Party, not going to recruit other party members in the interim to undermine the leadership in those different parties, then the CPP would have been stronger. Then you could make this argument. We don't want to talk about that, but we want to go to black voting. So let us talk about all of these things. We cannot solve a problem without understanding the root cause of the problem. And that is the issue with Liberia's problem. So let me go to Mr. Freeman. Mr. Freeman, I want to thank you very much. I think he made a very brilliant case about Mr. Cummings when he said Mr. Cummings' argument and going to the Supreme Court and here and there. Mr. Freeman, I think you just agree with me on the point when Benedict Ure told the BBC that had Mr. Cummings taken responsibility and apologized to us, we would not be here. This thing would have been done with. But Mr. Cummings was the one who had demanding apology, and he even threatened to go to court. His name, we heard people from the ANC saying they want to malign his character. He has worked so hard for his reputation. So he asked Ure to go to court. Ure is only, again, let me repeat. Ure is only serving Mr. Cummings a cup of coffee that he asked for. And that is it. Now, let me answer, let me just go to Kesari Double. Kesari, fine point there. I agree with what you say. I support it. Again, like we said, black voting, how is it going to work? Look, folks, people just being afraid, Mr. Sieh. The Unity Party just say for us, this is how we want to vote. Let Liberty Party say how they want to vote. Let ANC people say how they wanted to vote. Should there have been one primary? Unfortunately, I don't think there will be one. And sadly, to announce the death of that will leave it there. Let me go to my good friend and brother, the man Wayman Pele. Wayman Pele is questioning the argument that I made about the issue of votes and said that if we claim the election was fraudulent, that why is it we still using the number? Wayman Pele, at the end of the day, the body, the institution in Liberia responsible for upholding constitution or interpreting the law is the Supreme Court. As far as the court was concerned, the numbers were valid. The court made it clear. The court agreed that yes, there were malfunctions, there were irregularities, but the court said they did not believe that they amended to the point where they could have impacted the elections. So therefore, we use the numbers. Again, let me say this to you. On the issue of Mr. Cummings and the argument you try to make with Pele, my dear brother, I will say this to you. Mr. Cummings and the ANC, I think we need to be real to the Liberian people. We need to tell our folks the truth. And part of the problem here, Mr. Sieh, based on what you read earlier on today, if any Liberian was sitting on the fence and based on what you read here today and the statements you've made, my friend Wayman Pele and so many people in the ANC are yet to even accept that the documents were altered. I hear them arguing every day that the document were not authored, people alleging document were authored, document were finger. So until you people can first establish and acknowledge that the documents were authored, then we can get to that point. On that note, I would say, I just want to thank Matthew. Matthew asked a question about the document I was submitted. This is why, Mr. Sieh, when you spoke, I was very clear. And I said, on answering that question, that until I can confirm from the Secretary General of which one of the copy he picked up, because again, I asked you, Mr. Sieh, which one of the document was submitted? Because if what was signed on May 19 is what Mr. Cummings submitted, then that you will have no case. But if from what we're seeing, what was signed on May 19 by UA is not what was submitted. So again, I can't confirm whether it was a photocopy that was submitted or it was an original that was submitted. That is why Mr. Cummings, who is Mr. Transparent, Mr. Clean Hands, now have an obligation, a responsibility to the Liberian people to do the right thing, to bring forward the documents, to show to the Liberian people that he's innocent, to prove to the people that we should not call him criminal defendant, that he's such a decent public servant. Let Mr. Cummings come and show that to the Liberian people. On that, Ms. Matthew, we'll wait and see, but I can do follow up. I will speak to Mo, and then we'll go from there. Mr. Sieh, I will talk to Mo on that and we'll get back to you. In my closing, Mr. Sieh, I want to say thanks to all of our Liberian viewers, all of you today who agree and disagree with us. I want to thank you for your comments, for your calls. I'm the guy who do not believe that people should agree with me. And I have a great deal of respect for all of you. But to you Liberians who are sitting at home, don't forget, you have a responsibility to your children and your own future. You have a president now that is improving in his skills. George Weah was a celebrity. I will never take that away from him. He remains Africa's greatest soccer player. He is a star, that's true. Liberians must understand not all skills are transferable in the office of the presidency. Sadly for us, the longer President Weah stays president, the more President Weah gave you reason why he should not be president. You think President Weah will be demanding a black belt at this time when he's yet to have created 10,000 jobs in 4 years? But that is to tell you that the guy don't want to be president. And the longer he stays being president, this is what you will get. You will see the Shaolin monk master. You will see, next time you will see President Weah becoming a ninja. And that is what we're up against. At the end of the day, don't lose your sleep. Stay focused. The CPP is not the only opposition out there. The Rainbow Alliance consists of 11 parties. The CPP that just 4. With or without the CPP, you as a Liberian should know what you want. You as a Liberian should know what is best for your country. And this notion that people want to use scare tactics by saying, oh, without the CPP, oh, we'll make George Weah president. If that is the ANC wishes, the ANC have helped in making George Weah president in 2017 because they all signed up to that declaration in Ganta. So we will not be surprised if they were to repeat that again. That's normal. But you have an obligation to yourself. Mr. Sieh and Focus on Liberia, I want to say thank you. Let me take this time and thank my Unity Party partisans, the draft members who have tuned out here today, have tuned in rather to watch this show. I want to thank all of you for your support. Mr. Sieh, thank you. It's been a pleasure. I look forward to being back here one of these days to articulate Ambassador Boyka's vision and his mission, his plans for Liberia, how he intends to create jobs, how ARTS will expand the Liberian economy, how many jobs we are anticipating, what are we looking at in terms of investments, how do we intend to improve the education and healthcare sector. On this note, we know President Weah is trying to distract us, doing that karate thing. President Weah don't want us to talk about a market he say they spent $4.3 million. We know it's a lie, but again, I want to thank you for this opportunity. It's been a pleasure hanging out with you today.
George, you know, it's always a meaningful and insightful and informative discussion when you are here on Focus on Liberia. That's part of our proximity. We'll push you to the limit because for us here at Focus on Liberia, it's about substantive discussion. It's not about fries and G's. Well, Dennis would tell me, George, leadership is a life and death situation, especially with this country called Liberia. We all know we are around 5 million people. And we also know that our greatest resources, if I can pull it that way, would be the Liberian people themselves, especially our young people. If you look at these young people today, where they are, what's his name? Your friend and co-host, Dwalo Corn, this world called zogorized.
Yeah.
The young people of Liberia are being zogorized directly and indirectly by our leaders because they have continuously failed to invest in this most valuable and precious resource of our country. I hold all these leaders responsible. And that is why when I look at the CPP fighting, I try to tell people, look, you can blame Cummings all you want. This man is well off. Have you thought about the Zogos in the street today? The CPP was giving them hope. I saw the Zogos statement, their press statement. They went after the government. Where can that Zogo population put their trust right now? I think it should be the CPP. And where is the CPP right now? The CPP is in court. But George said, Manions, the CPP, there is path to victory. I hope to see that path. But wouldn't that path be better if the CPP were to hold, as we've seen in the by-elections that just passed? But that is history now, I will say. Fellow Liberians, we have to talk about the issue. And Masasta man has become a Shaolin master. Don't even post about it. It's absolute nonsense. Wearing black belt for him to be seen like this, he's distracting us. That strategy will not fly on this platform. We will talk about health. We will talk about rape. This president is saying he's the feminist in chief. He has not uttered a word on a young man who have been sodomized and his tongue cut off. A little girl who was sodomized as well and died in the process. This president is yet to express a single word about that. But yes, he has strength to showcase his karate skills. That tells you how unserious he is. And what the political leaders, the opposition leaders are doing, they are fighting among ourselves. Liberians, the young people, are left with no leadership whatsoever. And that is why some people think I'm angry. If I am, maybe for the right reason. Because I've lived poverty and we all have lived poverty. How do we change it when our leaders are not focusing on the big picture? But George, let me not preach this summer. I will save it for another day. Focus on Liberia is the place to tune. Don't go to your G's and fries and those folks that are buying views. They are lying to you. They are themselves are cheat and deceitful people. And this behavior, we must cut it out. Watch the drive. Watch Focus on Liberia, where you get balance and informative discussion. And people talking about fries and G's and you're wasting your time.
Oh, man, you've been political now. You've been political in the media landscape.
I'm still a journalist advocating for my country, man. Well, folks, we have to leave it there. The song says we are all Liberians, and that song is taking us home. George Lobbo again. Thank you so very much for coming here on the Hour of Politics. I will reach out to you to discuss the GMB.
Today is Friday, so the people see me here. That means I'm unemployed.
Yeah. All right, folks. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home.